7 o'clock, so I'm gonna call order the meeting of the town board of November 28th, special meeting. So we have two things on the agenda tonight. The first is a reopening of the public hearing for the zoning amendments and the subdivision amendments. And then the second part, after we recess that, we will be talking about the shady water issue. So both events are gonna happen the same way. What we're gonna do is, we're gonna do 2 minutes, and I'm gonna start in the front, and I'm gonna work back and forth, and once we're done with all the seating, I'll go around the perimeter, and everybody will get a chance to talk. After you time, I'll give a gentle rap on the table in 15 seconds, when you have 15 seconds left. And I do ask, because we're zooming this and the audio is not great, but we're trying to accommodate as many people as possible. So I would ask that everybody just keep it down when people are speaking. Try and keep the clapping and the booing to a minimum and let everybody have an opportunity to speak. So, I don't know.
And where no, it's not part of the Congress.
I didn't hear from you. Yeah. Well, I know Reggie's on vacation.
Oh, Reggie's on vacation.
Yeah. I don't know what that is. I don't know what it means. So with that, I will reopen the public hearing on chapter 260 and chapter 202. And I will start in this corner here. And if you could stand and just give your name, and then I'll start at the clock.
And the camera's over there.
Yes.
So you're speaking to the board and, oh, there you go.
Okay.
Okay.
Go.
Where do we face?
You should face the board.
Talking to the board.
So my name is Susan Painter. My first comment that I'm going to share is as a member of the Woodstock Environmental Commission, as well as the co-chair of the Stop Woodstock National. We urge the town of Woodstock to demonstrate visionary leadership to protect the town's natural environment by requiring an 80 to 85% open space requirement in conservation subdivisions. This is particularly important in areas that are formally designated as critical environmental areas. Open space should only be defined as natural features, including but not limited to wetlands, vernal ponds, streams, and forests, and should not include man-made structures such as golf courses. My next comments are shared as an environmentally concerned private citizen. As I shared at the last public hearing, I continue to be concerned about the impact potential multiplexes could have on our town's water resources, particularly in light of climate change and the resulting droughts and reduced snowpack. Lastly, I encourage everyone here to remain here after the public hearing to learn about how the contamination in Shady will be remediated. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Gail Albert. I want to thank you first because I think what you've done is amazing. I have two comments. One is to agree with Susan that certainly critical environmental areas should have 80% protection at least, if not simply not be built on. Okay. The other is from the document subdivision master edit accepted. It says on page 81 that a conservation subdivision requires that 50% of the total parcel be permanently preserved as open space. But then on page 39, it says that in general, the planning board shall require that not less than 5% nor more than 10% of the total land area within the subdivision be set aside for park and recreation purposes. And that recreation land such as ball fields, golf courses, and parks shall not be considered part of the required open space unless such land is open to the public. So reversing that, it seems that if open to the public, recreation lands can come out of the 50% of the parcel that is supposed to be permanently preserved. My understanding is okay, for example, then Washington National could buy the approximately 600 acres of land in Woodstock it is indicated. 300 acres would be required to be set aside as open land to be permanently conserved. But up to 60 of those acres, which is 10% of the total acreage, could still be clear cut to put in something. I understand that you are planning not to allow golf courses in Woodstock. I have been told that as part of the new code, but I don't know about ball fields or other kinds of recreation. So I'm asking that the open lands be kept separate from the conserved lands and come out of the area of a parcel that would be allowed for development. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Paula Sylvie, and I'm reading this on behalf of Jeannie Fraden, who wrote it. to whom it may concern into the HOTF. I attended the public Q&A on the 11th of November at the community center. I am extremely impressed with the thorough, careful work and measure of detail that the HOTF has done to address our zoning laws and move them into the present time we live in. I recall just prior to and during the pandemic, the intense concern about affordable housing that emerged in our community. It seemed we were all passionately united in finding solutions, and the agreed upon moratorium for development allowed some room to reimagine and redraw our plans and ideas. This is exactly what HOTF has done for our entire community, and I am grateful. I am someone who would describe myself as an animals and trees first person. I have always been firm about this and not always considerate of my fellow humans. When I heard the pleas for housing during the moratorium discussion, it caused me to rethink how I might face development in my own pristine backyard. I managed to pry myself away from my rigid stance and decided that if it would bring affordable housing to lower income people and would address the environment in every possible way, I would just have to get on board because it's the kinder and community-minded thing to do. I am a lucky older white citizen with a lovely house on a mountainside. My house, no doubt, broke up contiguous habitat. I believe that HOTV has done a pretty amazing job in finding ways to address both the housing crunch and the preservation of our earth space. Developers exist. HOTF did not create developers for capitalist society. They've worked painstakingly to make the best of the needs of humans and the needs of the land. They are open to tweaks and suggestions. They are all outstanding members of the community who have deserved it for decades and who love it as I do. I trust them, their integrity, and their heart and skill.
Thank you very much.
Hello, Brian. Hi, neighbors. If we don't stop this from happening, and I'm talking about that, then why don't we just open up a McDonald's on the corner?
Can't hear you.
Can't hear me? Okay, so then why don't we open up a McDonald's on the corner? Okay? So at the end of the day, my little Selena neighborhood on John Roy Road, we stopped a nursing home, we stopped several other projects that were going to destroy the pristine, lovely neighborhood. We have a hamlet here in Woodstock, and it breaks my heart to even think that the money from this hedge fund guy that's worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Do you need a bigger boat? Do you need more money? Do you need more of everything? So all I can say is that if we don't fight this, then the neighborhood is a change thing, and I don't even know what to say. There were a couple other things that I had in my head to say, and I'm forgetting right now. But
This is a hearing for zoning amendments. Is
I
that-
got that.
Okay.
Okay, so the zoning amendment is the top issue here. I get that. But I think that all of us are here because we don't want this.
Yeah, and that goes to different meetings. I agree with you, but that is a different meeting.
And how many of you, how many of you live within 5 miles
Okay.
of the project?
Judy, would you like to speak?
Anybody?
And they,
Yes, I would like to speak.
if you wouldn't mind coming over.
I'm sorry.
Can you get that there?
That's good.
That's good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Mike, what did tell?
No, it wouldn't be necessary. I just need to speak loudly like I do.
My name is Judy Kerman. I'm a homeowner, an artist, a small business owner, and an experienced administrator. I have served on a number of volunteer boards, one of them part of a small city government in Michigan. In 2013, a couple of years after moving to Woodstock, I joined the planning board because I thought my skills might help preserve what we all love about Woodstock, our natural environment and our cultural environment. Like many people, I am concerned about both environmental degradation and the affordable housing crisis in Woodstock and across the country. I agreed to serve on the HOTF, Housing Oversight Task Force, that wrote the proposal that's before the board, because I believed I could address my concerns by helping to revise an outdated zoning code, which sometimes hinders good planning board work, and I speak from experience. In more than 2 years of steady work, the HOTF has produced a draft code I am personally proud of. Nothing perfect, but this proposal is damn good. It's been made better by comments from our fellow Woodstockers, even some who oppose it. I hope the town board will study the proposal carefully and pass it expeditiously. Thank you.
Yes. I was going to talk about this subdivision that's going to be happening in the Phoenix area, but I found out today from a very knowledgeable source, it's not going to happen. Just so we know, it's not happening.
All right, this is the public.
It's not happening. I'm gonna go beyond it. So assuming that. Trust me, it's not happening. I heard it from some very reliable. Anyway, because many of you probably know, we do have this consideration in the future of what happens to a large subdivision. How can these happen? How do we prevent these? How do we make these work within us? So what we've done in the code is, let me just go here, sorry. On the current subdivision zoning laws, there was little to nothing that the planning board could have done to stop that subdivision. If the proposed subdivision and zoning codes are passed, the ones we're proposing, this major subdivision would have to be changed in several significant ways. The first difference is that under the existing code, subdivision is not automatically required to be clustered. Clustered development differs from a non-clustered development in that all the lots are grouped in a smaller area instead of spread out throughout the entire development. This has the advantage of reducing the total footprint of the development and reducing the amount of impermeable surfaces such as roads, resulting in a significant reduction in the total disturbed area. Now, it's been correctly pointed out that the planning board can require that the development be clustered. However, under the existing subdivision laws, the law that then governs the resulting clustered development is New York town law, not a Woodstock town law. This is because the existing Woodstock town law does not have the clustered law as part of its code. The state laws governing clustered code are about 1 page long. The proposed subdivision code is considerably longer than 1 page. And I believe, some people are concerned about how long the code is, the new code, proposed code is. For me, I'd rather have more words to protect our environment than fewer words to protect our environment. In the existing code, as I said, I'm not going to finish on the code. The planning board can require cluster development. In the new code, however, all major subdivisions must be conservation subdivisions. This means, in addition to clustering, there's a 50% land conserved forever, and that land is untouched. Golf courses do not count in the existing code. The untouched land is what the cluster development, what a subdivision. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have more to.
My name is Stuart Hawkins, and I'd like to speak in favor of the proposed zoning code. I'm particularly impressed with the way that it takes care of the environment. It gives the planning board a lot of power. And one section that really stood out for me was from section 202.22, which lists a whole bunch of things that the planning board can require of a subdivision. And then the last one that it lists is any improvements the planning board deems necessary for health, safety, and welfare. We have an imaginative planning board, and if an imaginative developer comes in with some way to damage our environment, our planning board can use this to to prevent that damage from happening. This is a really well-written and well thought out code from an environmental point of view, and I hope you'll pass it soon. I really look forward to that. Thanks.
Deborah?
Hi, my name is Deborah Meyer Dewan, and tonight I speak not as HOTF co-chair, but as a Woodstocker. I've lived here full-time for 50 years. My story is typical of many longtime Woodstockers. As a single mom, I worked several low-paying jobs to make ends meet. Through those struggles came good fortune. Happily, my daughter went to Auntie Aura and today teaches college. Her stepdad and I cherish this community and give back when and where we can. I've served on boards of Family, Catskill Center, River Keeper, County Housing Advisory Committee, the Woodstock Housing Committee, and HOTF. There are many people with stories like mine, but today, finding an affordable place to live and a living wage is out of reach for too many in Woodstock. I wholeheartedly support the town board adopting the laws developed. They will enable more affordable housing options and greater protection of our environment. Current code does not meet these goals. Proposed changes do. For example, multi-dwelling buildings. Today, someone could buy housing almost anywhere in town, tear it down, and put up multi-dwelling structures with little environmental oversight or limit on size of buildings or number of units, and no affordability requirements. The proposed code limits the number on a large lot, and construction keeps to the scale and character of a town with affordable units. It gives the planning board teeth to require studies, hydrology, as usual, and much stricter siting standards. Net buildable acres is a critical environmental siting tool that subtracts sensitive environmental areas, wetlands, streams, buffers, steep slopes, to calculate density. Resulting net buildable acres can mean less density, fewer houses, more sensitive land. Our current code cookie cutter approach has none of that. I'm going to talk about this one last thing. I recently attended a conference at Mohawk called Room Enough for Both Affordable Housing and Preserving Open Space. Their message was a sold-out event with loud and clear. We can both protect the environment and provide housing people can afford. In fact, we must, if we're going to have a thriving community with people and services we want and need.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Nancy Cantor, and I'm reading this on behalf of Dorothy and Marcus, to the town of Woodstock. I wholeheartedly endorse the proposed zoning changes drafted by the HOTF. I know and respect all the members of the HOTF and trust that their recommendations are carefully and intelligently developed over many, many months of hard, focused work in consultation with a recognized expert in the field. As a longtime trustee of the Woodstock Library, I empathize with the HOTF's distress at seeing their work distorted and misrepresented by people who have a political interest in stirring up anxiety and opposition. I urge the town to adopt these recommendations, which are sorely needed to update our zoning and deal with 21st century realities and challenges. I am also an associate real estate broker at Halter Realty Associates, and am confident these proposals will benefit current and future residents, give people more options to economically benefit from their properties, and also help provide more affordable housing in Woodstock. Dorothy.
My name is Mary Ellen Colson. I live on Spiegel Road. Long ago, I used to be an urban planner. And I used to be the person who stood in front of meetings like this with very little defense in anything. But what I will say is what is proposed, and I read the ordinance that proposes changes to the zoning code. it does so much more than we have on the books today. It will do a lot to protect the environment of Woodstock. What that said, what I'd really like to see, I think there's a lot of paranoia about showing maps because they may get all over the internet, what have you. But it would help people to visualize, maybe it's just has to be a paper map that they don't allow pictures of it, that show what lots would be affected, where you could build, where the town sewer is, where the town water is, those are constraints, where the steep slopes are, where the environmentally critical areas are. There are going to be so many constraints on developers. They're going to be like the folks at Woodstock National. Let's hope that's why they walk away. What we do need is a new zoning ordinance that protects our land, and so that every time we have a new proposal, it isn't something like that we all have to fight. The zoning ordinance should do our fighting for us.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Andy Mossy. I'm the Executive Director of the Woodstock Land Conservancy. And tonight I am speaking on behalf of the Conservancy, but before I get started on my comments, I just wanted to thank the town board for your consideration of the community and holding this public hearing tonight with the option for attending via video conference, although we know it's been a little iffy. Additionally, thank you to the Housing Oversight Task Force for their countless volunteer hours in crafting this zoning revision. I'm speaking tonight on behalf of the organization and our views on the revisions tonight. And my comments as it pertains specifically to these zoning revisions will be focused on three primary issues: the environment, our climate, affordable housing, and community mobility. As the revision pertains to the environment, WLC recognizes that these revisions offer more protection for wildlands than our previous zoning. Zoning as it was created in the 50s and 60s was better than none. However, over time, it encouraged fragmentation of our natural areas. This new zoning revision aims to cluster housing and protect larger contiguous functional areas of habitat. In our world of severe climate change, protecting lands will be critical to maintaining a resilience to the accelerating effects that we are bound to face in the years to come. In regards to affordable housing, this revision offers the ability for multiple unit dwellings to be built in key areas across the town where residents would largely have access to services and amenities. A primary location for the development of multiple unit dwellings should be centered in or near the commercial hamlet to ensure residents have access to these amenities. WLC also encourages the town board to incorporate the Complete Streets Committee's recommendations for all future planning and development, and to reference the policy regularly within the zoning revisions. Residents, especially those without access to vehicles and those who choose to not own them, require safe corridors to travel by foot, mobility assist device, bicycle, or e-bike. Lastly, thank you very much. And just want to say one thing about the rumor. It's not what I've heard about Woodstock National, so please let's not jump to any conclusions yet. Thank you.
There we go. Okay.
Evening, my name is Ken Panza. I submitted written comments to the board, and hopefully you'll accept those as part of the record. But I want to make one comment about the definition of affordable housing. Within the law, there's a definition that establishes a selling price for a property based on what they call the AMI, and 20% of this and 30% of that. But if you go through the calculations, a selling unit, an affordable property would have to have a selling price of $375,000. Now in Woodstock, you don't get much for $375,000. And I don't know, I'm not a developer, but I've been told that few developers could actually provide affordable housing at a $375,000 price. So this presents a dilemma for the developers. Either they can game the system, make promises that they have no intention or a possibility of keeping, or walk away from the developments in Woodstock. And then the major subdivisions, there's a requirement for 15% affordable housing. Well, there's no way a developer is going to be able to provide 15% of the housing at $375,000. So the town board may want to relax that requirement And so that affordable housing is a possibility, but not to the point where it actually destroys the incentive to actually build any housing. Thank you.
I'm Jim Polson. I'm a private citizen. I live on Spiegel Road with the former urban planner. I agree with the positive things that people have said. The one thing I would like to impress on you, and you sort of suggested that, these guys are going to try to game the system. So when you adopt this, you got to have an enforcement system and you got to have an enforcement staff, which I believe you're just going to be recommended. That's my bit. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Hey, my name is Kay Lenore. I live in Willow. I actually live in R3. And all the stuff in the law that's about, net acreage, buildable land, clustering, so much of the environmental stuff, I think is terrific. But I just thought I'd take a little look at what I could do with the 7 acres that I own across the street from my house where the Willow Post Office is. And I looked through the chart and looked everything up. I could put in 12 to 14 units depending on the wet area, which would generate 12 families, 24 cars in a place with no public transport. Okay, I live in Willow. Now I have a 7 acre lot. If I wanted to develop under this set of rules, I could put in, depending on the wet part, 12 to 14 acres. None of it would be affordable. Sorry, 12 to 14 years, none of it would be affordable and a part of the community with no public transport. I spent a little time reading about zoning as it affects affordability, and it seems to not work very well. In this law, there's a possibility to pay a fee in lieu of affordable zoning.
No.
Okay, that's fine. So I took a look at what some other communities suffering from the same problem. The one that I know well is Amagansett East Hampton. And they recently passed a law creating a 0.5% real estate transfer tax, which was voted on by the community on election day of 2022 to provide funding. In other words, there's other ways to provide funding for affordable housing.
So, and maybe everybody else can come up to the front. Thank you.
Good evening, Supervisor and Board. I'm here to request not to pass the HOTF zoning law as it now stands. Why? The HOTF zoning laws, as written, are incredibly blind to climate change. It does not address 2 important concepts, adaptation and resilience. It has been documented that the Northeast is no longer experiencing the amount of snow and snowpacks as we once did in previous decades. Due to this loss of snow, it directly impacts the recharge rate of the aquifer. How can we build high-density housing when this obvious issue has never been addressed? Why does the town encourage high-density housing to be built in the R5 zones, especially in the recharge area of the Upper Salt Hill River? How can we promote high-density housing in the R5 zones, which are environmentally sensitive lands? These areas are adjacent to woodlands, which are susceptible to wildfire. Why should the town be concerned? There has not been any controlled burns to relieve the forest of the dead wood that has died due to invasive insects or the stress of climate change. The town has been negligent in concerted effort for residents to do a cleanup of the surrounding tree and leaf debris. All this dead debris and prolonged drought make our forest a tinderbox very quickly. Having a desert population areas results in a greater chance of sparking a fire. It's a fact that 95% of wildfires are started by humans. In addition, there is no town infrastructure in a place like this to fight these fires. No hydrants, small winding roads. Hydrants cluster does not belong in this area. Incorporate the language from the New York State Model Laws of Increased Resiliency, which is the copy here I gave you. And that none of these laws are included. In the R3 zones, individual well water meters should be a requirement. So it could be monitor the individual well usage of water and to anticipate any dangerous flow of the aquifer. It includes the OTF version of the law That should be rejected.
Michael Trillinger. I am a resident of Woodstock, and I think of myself as engaged in our community. I write in support of the proposed zoning code updates. It is clear to me that there is an affordable housing crisis in all of Ulster County, and in the town of Woodstock in particular. Updating the current zoning law by itself will not solve all the housing problems, but is the first and necessary step to take towards the needed solutions. I was a silent virtual listener at the first public hearing. I heard many raise concerns over the proposed changes. It appeared to me that these folks hadn't read what was being proposed. For example, several people stated that there is no definition of affordable. Actually, the proposed code clearly defines affordability as a function of income levels. I heard people state the proposed changes won't require affordable housing to be built. In fact, the proposed changes require developers of anything larger than a two-family house to include a percentage of the project to be affordable. I heard several people warn of environmental disaster and overdevelopment. The proposed changes include greater environmental protection than the current code and provide stronger language so that the planning board will have greater authority to ensure projects from having minimal impact on the environment. Doing nothing and leaving existing laws in place will ensure that nothing changes.
15 seconds still.
Okay. The Housing Oversight Task Force is composed of thoughtful, intelligent, informed, and knowledgeable Woodstock residents, bolstered by a consultant with trained professional, and they are proposing reasonable, rational, and necessary zoning law changes that I heartily support.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's do the clapping at the end, and then we'll clap for everybody. Next.
My name is John Ludwig. We can't rely on the goodwill of developers to provide affordable housing in Woodstock. I think few people would disagree with that. The proposed zoning and subdivision regulations are littered with phrases like designated affordable and deed restricted to be an affordable unit. But those are just empty words, wishful thinking. We're a small town with no attorney on staff and no housing authority. The zoning enforcement officer already has his hands full and would be no match against the developers and their attorneys. The incentive to maximize the profit that comes with the Woodstock brand is powerful. Let's not kid ourselves. A focused effort on creating affordable housing might involve REPCO or Ulster County Habitat for Humanity. We have one successful project at Woodstock Commons, so we know it can be done. If this zoning proposal is adopted into law, we'll get more housing and it will be expensive housing that the developers will love. That appears to be the intent of this proposal. The problem of affordable housing will remain unaddressed and will have a missed opportunity that no one could be proud of.
So this is pretty emotional for me. I'm gonna speak. I'm on the housing committee. I've been doing it for almost 5 years now from March. And not everybody else get her name, but I'll give my name. My name is Urena. And I grew up here and I grew up as a single parent child. And most of my friends have been pushed out of this community because they can't afford to live here. I see a couple maybe here. The rest of you all pretty much have gray hair. Do you know what your future is and what the research shows? Even ARP, that's all they're talking about is ADUs and smaller clusters and affordable housing. And 1,000 square unit place is not, or square feet is not really that big that's attached to your McMansion that only 2 people are living in. So when I'm bringing food to people in town that are serving the tourists, that are keeping you afloat, why don't you think about those people and your neighbors and everybody? And the fact of the matter is that none of what is in front of us with revisions, community land trust, anything, the Woodstock home share, all of that is supposed to work together. And they work in tandem. And these revisions that haven't been touched since the 80s, that was set up actually to make it harder for affordable housing. The research shows, if you don't believe it, you go read it. I spent hours and hours, days and days, years and years reading about this research with 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 other people who are really intelligent and smart too, that give a shit about this town, just like I do. And so you don't have to trust us, go do it yourself. Otherwise, you could trust us and see that we have done the research and that all these things together work in tandem. I'm finishing, work in tandem and will help create affordable housing and protect our community that I grew up into.
Thank you.
Hello, and those of you that don't know me, I'm Janine Maurer. I'm reading a letter that John Maurer and Janine Maurer put together, presented to the town board. I want to take a moment to just take a breath, and I want to thank the Housing Task Force members for the hard work that I know that they've done over the past 2 years, and I want to especially thank the town board, and of course, Jackie, you're sitting here too, for your effort to listen to the public. So I want to thank you for that. John and I have followed the progress of the town board appointed housing task force for the past 2 years. We have also been following the challenges facing the residents engaged in managing short-term rentals, including the controversies and the blessings that this rental option has brought to Woodstock. As many of you may be aware, John and I reside in what is known as the Bearsville Flats. It's a development, it's a 1950s style assortment of nearly 200 ranch style homes. Depending on their condition today, they go up for sale at a minimum of $300,000 and some top out at $500,000. If the townspeople of the town of Woodstock wish to maintain the income diversity of its residents living within its boundaries, dramatic action needs to be taken. We wholeheartedly agree that the 1989 zoning law needs to be updated. As a matter of fact, John and Janine, that's us, we are of the opinion that the 1989 zoning law has in part contributed to the lack of housing that is within the workforce and senior affordable price range. We recall quite well the Friends of Woodstock opposing to the affordable housing or high density development that was put up behind the post office. The zoning revisions that are being scrutinized this year are part of a fluid living document, and we believe that Woodstockers who have worked diligently to put the zoning amendments together have the future of Woodstock's population in mind. We are confident the amendments to the zoning law will protect our sensitive environmental areas throughout town by utilizing conservation-based development. And we think that it will allow us to have income diversity within our community, which is very important. Thank you.
Ask everybody to try to keep to the 2 minutes so we can get through and everybody gets an opportunity.
Hi, Iris York.
Iris.
Okay, first I want to comment on a question that somebody asked at the last public hearing. And that was who decides on whether or not the zoning law updates are approved? Bill, you answered the town board. However, I want to clarify to that person, if she's here, and anyone else, that it is only 3 out of 5 who need to approve it. It's a majority only, and no one on the town board, including the new council person-elect, has made it a secret as to whether or not they are in favor of the proposed zoning law. Okay, next, moving on, I have some comments. Obviously, I do not have enough time to read through all of them. So let me just point out a couple of things that I found. I thought there was a loophole in the ADU section that needs to be looked at. The details are in here, okay? And then there was a discrepancy that I found between attachment 1, the use table, and the attachment to table 2, the density and minimum lot requirements. This is like the 3rd time I've mentioned, because I've sent it to the zoning updates email, and I handed it in last week, but of course there hasn't been a next version. But this version didn't have it from when I said it before. So that needs to be looked at, and the rest I can't, it's more, detail. So I will just finish with something I said last time, and that is my biggest concern is how ambitious this zoning update is by allowing so many different kinds of structures in so many districts. It's an invitation for developers to develop more and more housing, whether it be 3- and 4-plex structures, multifamily, or clustered lot developments. Even with a certain percentage to be left untouched as open space, it still will end up looking like suburbia because of so many buildings. It's just too much. The character of Woodstock would be changed forever.
Thank you, Iris. You're gonna get that?
Iris, would you also send us?
Yeah, you send everybody. And I'll send-
If you're gonna email it, keep it.
Oh, okay, yeah, I'll email it if you want.
Or both.
No, I'm just gonna send it to the whole council.
Oh,
And I'm gonna
And
also
exactly.
send it in the meeting of the hours, you'll get it.
I've got you, I've got the list.
Right.
Who's next
right,
on
but
that?
you didn't get this.
Who's next? Now, next, we're to the next row now, behind you, Nick.
Who's behind you?
Anybody? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th row.
I'm here, I would like
And hold on, we're going across, so you'll get your turn in a minute. Actually, we're gonna do the rows and then we're gonna go around the outside. Ed, your row, you want anything?
I am Ed Sanders, poet, musician, and historian. I and my wife Miriam have been active in local environmental issues for decades. I was the chair of the committee that wrote the zoning law that is currently in effect in Woodstock. The zoning districts were created over a series of years by a bipartisan set of committees that chose to protect Woodstock's beautiful natural resources. And I am saddened that some of you in this room were drawn here by the false promises of affordable housing delivered by a local group, because I strongly urge the town board not to pass this massive zoning boondoggle, which threatens hundreds of Woodstock roads with hundreds and perhaps even thousands of market rate expensive housing, which will devastate Woodstock's fragile water supply, stands of trees and drain fields with pollution, and which will not create virtually any long-term affordable housing, which someone who works at house or works for the town can actually afford to rent or to purchase. Turn down this highly inappropriate boondoggle, which will just enrich developers, and instead create long-term and lifelong genuine affordable housing in the spirit of Franklin Roosevelt's New Deal and Lyndon Johnson's Great Society legislation. This is the way to help those in this room who want an affordable place to live in our magnificent, environmentally protected, water-rich town.
Thank you. LA? Okay. Next round, we're gonna go around the room after we get all the seating done. Harry, Linda, anybody in that row? Come on up.
Hi, my name is Kathy Ruttenberg, and I've been a Woodstock resident.
Here you go.
I'm not so good at this, so, my name is Kathy Ruttenberg, and I've been a Woodstock resident for 30 years, and, I'm very concerned about the zoning and subdivision changes that are being proposed by the town. I echo the concern that my neighbors are expressing. I'd like to focus on the lack of legally required environmental review conducted by the town. In a May 9, 2023 HOTF presentation, slide 15 stated that the proposed zoning changes were going to be reviewed under the Town of Woodstock Environmental Quality Review, which is our local adoption of the State Environmental Quality Review Act. Time and time again, concerned residents have asked about the impacts the proposed zoning changes will have on the environment, and we have not received answers. Where is the environmental assessment form, the first step of the environmental review process, posted? When was the review conducted? What impacts were identified? What assumptions were used? Was it based upon 2023 data or data prior to COVID? It is contrary to established law that the environmental review documents are not available. The town must provide full transparency on these issues. Thank you.
That's covered.
Tony Wiedenbacher, Woodstock native, lived here on and off almost all my life. My father as well. I really, first of all, want to extend the appreciation for the time and effort that has gone into this zoning so far. However, I also like what people have been saying so far about keeping the environment, keeping the place affordable. But I think we have one other thing we have to do. Look around you. Woodstock is an aging community, and we are keeping out. The one thing we need is the major resource, and this is young families living here. Young families do not want to be stuck in a little apartment somewhere. They want a house, a home, and we have to make sure that as we grew up here, and there was young people there, that our population of young people is what we're looking to attract. We're not looking to attract big money. Big money is not the people who volunteer that hold this place together. And I know a lot about volunteers. 28 years I ran the Woodstock free all-day Christmas party, and I saw who put the energy out. We want energetic people. We want to make life comfortable for us who are living here now, but not only for the gray hair types. We need to have people who are young, who are attracted here, who can see a future here. This is what we do not want. We do not want to sell out so somebody can make a profit. We want to make a community that is strong, that can live here, and that can stay here. And we cannot have empty promises. If we have a rule, we have to have a way to enforce that rule. Right.
Who's next in that row? Judah? Judah, you wanna say anything? Behind you, the next row then? Anybody in that row? Going once, okay. Susan, come on up. So with the second to last row? Okay, we'll continue on over and then the last row.
My name is Susan Manuel, but I'm not speaking as myself. I'm speaking as Dale Jameson and David Hall of 257 Ohio Mountain Road. They were unable to make it. We are entirely in support of the proposed Woodstock zoning revision. As longtime Woodstock residents of 50 or so years, we have an appreciation for a community whose housing and services can support and allow for a full gamut of residents. In fact, this is partly what drew us here and keeps us here. The more walks of life our residents represent, the richer in quality our daily lives are. We loved it until recently people could afford to live here who were struggling to get their careers going or their families going, or just managing to be artists in an acknowledgedly difficult field. If we don't protect the artistic and the young and the elderly in our community, watch how fast we become an entitled place that exists on a distant memory of what we once had. Furthermore, we support the environmental protections that exist in the proposed revision. How can we not pay attention to the health of our habitat, protecting our water, our land, our use of these valuable resources, when environmental shortages and calamities all over the world show us just how important and in jeopardy these are when they are forgotten or ignored. Thank you, and with respect to the important work that lies ahead to keep our town vibrant and thoughtful about its future, Dale Jameson and David Hall.
Hi, my name is Sam Solano. Can you hear me? Yes. Okay. The misguided HOTF proposals make broad allowances for sizable condo development, multiplex housing, and multifamily housing in ecologically sensitive zoning districts in Woodstock. It's a radical reversal of 35 years of zoning policy that has successfully protected our environment and preserved Woodstock's rural beauty. Tearing down our zoning protection is not the solution to Woodstock's affordable housing problem. Even the HOTF has conceded that their proposals don't guarantee affordable housing. But what is guaranteed is that these permissive zoning proposals would be taken advantage of by profiteers eager to cash in on Woodstock. The HOTF has missed the target, and many Woodstockers have been surprised that this ad hoc committee has undertaken this vast rewrite of our zoning laws. The response from members of the HOTF and the town supervisor to community concerns has been to deny the plain language of the proposals that we can all see with our own eyes. Here's a shocking example of what is in these proposals. In the environmentally sensitive R5 district, you can have a 10-acre parcel. You can build 20 condos or clustered houses, 20 condos or houses on 10 acres. That equates to half-acre zoning. Picture that. And none of them have to be affordable. These zoning proposals are an example of greenwashing. Pro-development upzoning presented as environmentally friendly, when in fact, it's the opposite. We must not underestimate the consequences of upzoning. Developers like Woodstock National are at the dam. We need strong environmental protections now more than ever. If the town board enacts this gutting of the zone code, out-of-town developers, house flippers, and absentee landlords will move to capitalize on the HOTF zoning changes and suburbanize Woodstock.
Good evening. My name is Tim Raven. I've been a resident in Willow full-time for over 20 years. And I have to say, I love this town. I think everybody here is all in favor of affordable housing. I think the challenge we have is the proposals that we have on the table right now don't guarantee that. Now, I want to read a quote directly from your website, which talks about the building costs. It says on your website, building costs are currently at least $300 per square foot, not including water and septic costs, and are likely to rise. So when you think about the math here, the economics of building, what does this mean? For a developer to come in, okay, and you look at the cost of building for a 500 square foot apartment, when you factor in land costs, septic, well, your total costs are going to be in the region of $190,000 plus. When you think then adding what you need to get from a rental standpoint to cover those costs, plus taxes, insurance, and maintenance, you're not going to get much less. You're not going to get anything rentable in this town for under about $2,500 to $3,000 for a 500 square foot apartment. That's not affordable. The reason why is the cost of capital today is high. It's over 10% per building. The only groups who have lower cost of capital are organizations like RUPCO. They need to be part of this conversation because with their lower cost of capital, we can get lower cost affordable housing in this community.
Next in that row. The second to the back. Come on up.
Hi, I'm Donna Cole, and I live in R5. And many of my neighbors have 10 plus acres. They all surround me. And according to the HOTF chart, my neighbors can each build 20 units on every 10-acre parcel. Not one of these units are required to be affordable. My question is, why is this in the zoning? Most families have at least 2 cars. That's probably 40 plus cars on each of those 10 acres. What does the parking and traffic look like for those 40 cars? And that's just for one 10-acre lot. I live on Sickler Road, and like many other roads in town, it's popular for walking and biking. I can't even conceive of the traffic. And where does the water come from? The other issues I have, I want the removal of 3-plex, 4-plex, and 8-plex apartment buildings in areas without town sewer and water. I want to remove the floating residential district, which are largely multifamily homes of 30 and 40 units, plus their recreational and common use facilities in areas without town sewer and water. I don't want condos. It's not in keeping with the look of our town. I'd like to keep our current owner occupancy for ADUs. The removal of owner occupancy only helps investors. Increase the open space requirement to 85% in conservation subdivision. It's in keeping with other nearby communities, just like Red Hook. Change the open space definition and define it as natural features such as streams, wetlands, forests, meadows, and rock outcroppings only. No septic treatment plants, parking lots, and the undefined play area. It is not privileged or snobbish to worry about your well running dry or worrying about the damage to our environment these zoning changes will do, and with no affordable housing in sight.
On the other side, second to last row. Okay. Oh. Last row. Come on up.
So I'm Alec Nickeljohn. I live across the street. Haven't lived here that long. And I'm relatively recently getting involved in this whole issue, trying to get myself up to speed on a very complicated document and very complicated issues. But one thing that really stood out for me, and actually I just saw this recently this afternoon, was the question of short-term rentals. And I'm surprised it hasn't been, talked about more here. As far as I can tell, in this new code, the whole question of owner occupancy is just basically thrown out the window, for short-term rentals, which turns what originally was seen as a way for people to supplement their income, you know, and which could help them stay in homes, or help them, you know, with affordability. It turns it into an investment proposition. I've seen homes advertised on real estate sites in Woodstock as, you know, Airbnb investment properties. That's the you know, the thing on which they're being sold. New York City just closed down Airbnb that aren't owner occupied. Rochester, I just saw, has a similar code, a similar provision. I don't understand how this could possibly have gotten into a zoning proposition that's being marketed as supportive of affordability. I agree also with question of affordability lies kind of in a sense beyond the zoning, the documentation of it. There are strong market economic forces that are militating against it right now. To sort of, you know, provide leverage for that in a document seems completely what's the word, counterproductive. Thank you.
Anyone's in the last seated row? Okay, so I'm gonna start up here, I'm gonna go all, I'm gonna start right here. Michael, I'm starting here. Anybody here? Come on up.
Yeah.
Stop. We're gonna be around to you in a few minutes.
I'm not on the edge, I'm sitting down.
Okay, Miss.
You'll get your turn. I'd like to just say a few things first.
Sit down and we'll get to it in a few minutes. Go ahead.
So I say that I appreciate all the hard work that is going into this. And so thank you all and thank everybody that showed up, who cares about our town. And I'm from here. I'm second generation Woodstock. I'm kind of wrestling with like why am I focusing on this in some ways because of what's happened to people in my age range in this town. We've really been screwed over. And most of the people I know have been moved out and defunct, other than a certain amount of people that are older than us. But even some elderly people have been displaced to a lower income. So in my adult life, I've had an excruciating experience in Ulster County. I was disabled at a young age, and the system failed disabled younger people very badly. I can't speak for everybody else, but I can speak for people in that age range who did not grow up with a silver spoon, which is a relative term, but and anyhow, back to zoning. Okay, so I'm trying to understand how zoning affects people like me and everybody else. So I'm trying to learn from you all also. And I guess that what I wanted to focus on is, you know, well, there's the STU issue, which I think that that's a great way to offer a certain kind of housing options for people that don't necessarily fit with other aspects, but it doesn't feel like there is a focus. I mean, it says that it's for all people of all economic statuses and age range and everything. I appreciate the vision, but there's not enough like regulation, not enough to guarantee and make sure that people will actually be able to access this who are not,
You know what, do me a favor, and put together some thoughts and ideas, and then we'll talk.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jackie Schnee. I'm an artist and I've lived here since 2007. Not a gray hair. I live here with my 2 young kids. I want to say I really appreciate the effort that's been put forward by all the people who've been working to make it something that works for everybody. I do think there are some major blind spots in the proposal. One of them is what Donna mentioned earlier, the woman from Willow, the R5 zoning. I could put up, I live on a 23-acre unit, acreage. I could put up 30 units. My in-laws lived on Clearview Farm. They sold in January. They had a 17-acre parcel. They sold it without separating it or zoning because they wanted to keep that space free and open. The next person who's bought it will live there for a long time. I happen to know them. But that space, I want everybody to vision it. It's from Lake Hill Post Office, driving to Willow. It's the White House at the top of the field, the big open field. That could get 30 units. So that's like the picture you should have in your mind. So while I really appreciate a lot of the things that have been put forward, and I want affordable housing, but I want to say here, what I read in the zoning proposal is none of those units are required. None to be affordable housing. What is that for? Is that for the seniors? Is that so we can turn it into windows, like a condo area? So while there are parts that are necessary to be upgraded for the town, and there is a need for affordable housing, which I recognize and would like to support, I think there are real blind spots. And another one is the short-term rental. This is what the last thing I want to say, the short-term rental. When I bought, we could afford the taxes. The taxes have gone up and up. I applied for a legal thing so that I could Airbnb on one of the 50 or 100, however it is. And you all will not transfer, from what I understand, those in. And one of the things, because that's what helps amortize my taxes. And I put that money in knowing that I would be able to make money off of it. So it's penalizing me for doing something good. All right, thank you.
Thank you. You know what I'm gonna ask, just to speed it up a little bit, anybody going around the back that wants to speak, maybe you could just start to walk up to this side, okay? Erin?
Hi, I'm Erin Cadigan, and I did not grow up here. I've lived here a little bit over a decade. I am a small business owner, mother, artist, activist, volunteer. I am concerned both about the environment. I led the Friends of the Field to save Lasher's Field behind the funeral home. I am concerned about affordability for people, and yet I do think that, this view that this is just Woodstock is a little bit narrow. Open any financial magazine or newspaper. It is so widespread, it's not even funny. I have no idea whether or not these zoning changes will do the things that you're hoping. I can't believe this, but I agree with John that we are going to have to, find some organizations that do this kind of work and stop being not in my backyard and allow that to happen. But what I'm really here to talk about is the fact that I am a short-term rental owner. I have 2 on my property. They are right up against my house. One doesn't even have a kitchen. There's no way it's ever going to be long-term. The other one is used by my in-laws, my best friends. I was able to house my best friends at New York City during the entire pandemic, but it also at this point supports my family. And when I was volunteering with the Woodstock Immigration Network for a couple years, there was a concept that I learned that we do not give away the safety and security of one part of our community in order to ensure the safety and stability of another part of our community. And shutting down legal short-term rentals for people like me will take away my ability to support my family, possibly pay my mortgage and taxes, and put me out of a home. How is that fair? I have done everything with the changing laws over the 10 years I've owned these units, and I would like some language keeping safe the 250 legal short-term rental units. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. Hi, my name is Kathy Barrett. I've lived in Mount Tremper for about 8 years and Woodstock for the last 10. First of all, I want to thank the committee. You know, it's a tough gig. You're never going to make everybody happy, but I agree with a lot of the things that are said here tonight. And I think it's wonderful that the community cares about affordable housing and wants to do something about it. But I think the proposal as it stands is just opening the door for chaos to walk in. So the floating residual district gives the board the power to approve and rezone large projects wherever they wish. And this is worrisome to me to have this kind of open-ended power for a board to do as they choose. Considering that many of these revisions could impact the value of our homes for many different reasons, not just the floating residual district. But I think that homeowners should have the ability to really vote on this. This is a big deal. Yeah. I can't take credit for this. I hear it was on Nextdoor. I think Alan, or I don't know your last name. Okay, well, he suggested it and I thought it was a very great idea. So the revisions speak of having a consultant on staff, an administrative assistant to the consultant, a code enforcement officer, which is, I don't know if this is the same as a building inspector or not, or this is a new position. Then there is a dedicated attorney for these matters and a designated town engineer. So are these new positions that the zoning is creating, or the rezoning, I should say? And if so, does this fall on all taxpayers? And if so, what are the projected costs? Because this will impact us one way or the other. The board revision states that affordable housing will comply with the Ulster County AMI and the annual schedule of HUD. The median income, excuse me?
Time.
Okay, so I guess I'll have to send it to you in an
please
email. But I want to.
I would ask everybody who's written statements tonight to please forward them, so we have a copy.
Please send it to the entire board.
Okay, I would like to close here. I'm skipping over many things, but many questions were not addressed because they had to do with other departments, other groups that the rezoning proposal said is non-zoning issues. So whether the question is for the tax assessor, the town board, or whoever, why are these questions not being answered in real time? Homeowners should know how all of these rezoning issues will impact them from all angles.
Hi, my name is Catherine. I grew up here. I'm 36. I lived here we moved here in 91. I don't own a house. I didn't buy in time. And I can't afford to rent right now. So I'm staying with my dad. And obviously I am a proponent of affordable housing. What I'm hearing of this proposal it's awful. I don't even know why we're even talking about it being a possibility. It just sounds really, really quite terrible. It seems to me that obviously there's a lot at play here. One of the things that's coming to mind right now is the fact that trailers we don't like trailers because they're ugly. And when I say trailer, I mean a trailer on wheels that could cost $2,000. And someone like me, or anyone who needs a place right now, maybe they're in a house with mold, which is very common here. Maybe they are being kicked out, the house is being sold, whatever it is, that's something that it could be very helpful. I realize Saugerties, there are places that do allow that, but it would be really nice if that were a possibility here. Like, I know there are people with land who have the utilities and they would be willing to help people in that way. It would also be really nice if, you know, I don't really know that much about composting toilets and all that, but I grew up on the mountain and I've seen the trees, people clear cutting. Someone recently bought a 7-acre parcel and they clear cut almost all of it. And the house they built is massive for 2 people. And it just breaks my heart. I used to walk that land. It's so painful. And it's crazy that that's allowed. Like, I would live in a yurt. I would be so happy to have a yurt with utilities.
Okay.
And I know that I'm not alone there. So.
Looks like you, Hera.
Thanks a lot.
I just think this is totally insane that we have not heard about this much earlier than that. Why haven't, well, we don't have a newspaper. That's a real disadvantage. But if I had been on the committee, I would have been sending out postcards to everybody and saying, look, this is going on. Now, I led the fight against the old library being sold and the new toxic library being bought after John Ludwig made a great dent in that effort, and it has been ignored. But we have the scientific report, and we will share it with all of you.
This is about zoning.
I know, but this is about an aquifer also. And that aquifer in Shady is running right under the 10 Dixon Avenue Library. These new focused people are going to put more dwellings on our aquifer. They're nuts. This is a map of the aquifer. I'd be glad to give it to anyone. This was written by the Environmental Commission and put out by them. It's beautiful. The pink area is the aquifer, and it runs right under this horrible C&D operation up at 10 Church Road. And it runs under the library, and we're going to put more people on? Are we nuts? No, the Hotep people are nuts. This should never have gotten this far, and it is awful, awful, awful for our environment. I'll be glad to give anyone. Thank you.
Guys, let him speak, please.
Hi, my name is Ralph Mayer. I moved to Woodstock in 2010. I'm one of the young generation. You know, I have 3 kids who grew up here or growing up here. One is a little older. They all go to the schools here. They're very active parts of the community. I originally come from Vienna, so I sort of like know a lot of what low-income housing and rent-stabilized housing means, you know, and most of the stuff that basically was created there was created through the city of Vienna. There was a delegation that the big article in the New York Times, actually a delegation from New York State actually visited Vienna to get a good example of how things work. I'm here for a different reason. I'm an SDR owner as well. I need to read something very quick because I think you guys all overlooked something. And what you overlook is that 3 years, the owner-occupied SDR people got the incentive because there was a law put in place that it's safe for us to invest. I personally took about $600,000 and I put a new septic in one house where for, I think, 20 years, the product of human beings basically went straight into the mill stream. So I put a septic in, but now 3 years later, all of a sudden, this is going to be all taken away. Potentially. My mortgage is approximately $5,000, just went up like last year, $1,500. just for the money that I took extra because I felt safe, that it's safe to invest. I put $500,000 in local businesses. If it's the Nair family, the Woodstock building supply, if it's house, if it's Woodstock hardware, a lot of contractors, but now all of a sudden I pay the ultimate price. People who live here, that you literally would like me to give up one of my ADUs and give it to low income, which I cannot afford. So I'm not rich, I'm middle class, many others. And I think you really try to protect the community that not only gives money to the library, but also protects and supports the Woodstock Writing Club and other causes. Not to go after us and pay an over proportional share of what you think will create low-income housing, because I don't think that's fair. But I totally agree. All the stories we heard here, I think REPCO is a great idea. I think new zoning laws are a great idea. However, I'm an architect. I worked with Regina Myers in the Williamsburg 3.3 zoning. I worked with the Kestenbaums. It didn't work out so great. So I hope you give us more opportunity to talk more, because there's lots to say.
We're gonna have we're gonna take three more speakers.
Thank you. My name is David Stein. I'm a relatively recent resident of Woodstock, but I come here with a long experience in planning and regional planning in particular. And what I want to say is that the problems that we're trying to address of low-cost housing and affordability cannot be solved just at the local level. This is an issue that is both region-wide and national. And we need to be using our efforts not only to fix what we can locally, but to demand changes in the overall structure of how housing is built in the United States so that people can afford to live here. Right now, that's impossible. And I don't have an answer to that, but we need to be thinking about it, and we need to be working with our neighbors, particularly in Ulster County, and perhaps even more broadly, to come up to regional answers that will make it easier to share the burden. It cannot all be done locally. Thank you.
New York's zoning enabling statutes require that zoning laws be adopted in accordance with a comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan should provide the backbone for the local zoning law. As stated in the Woodstock Comprehensive Plan of November 2018, water resource management, aquifer protection, ensuring an adequate supply of clean water requires a review and adoption of the draft water supply protection law and a study of the feasibility of using the underground confined aquifer as an economically viable backup water supply. The Sawkill watershed is the source for the aquifer that provides Woodstock's water supply and is vital to the town's health, welfare, and scenic beauty. Identified problems with the Sawkill stream include erosion, turbidity, and log jams, and require a detailed management plan. The formulation and implementation of this plan might be most effectively addressed with the support of stream management professionals, either through collective actions with other towns in the Sawkill watershed or through staged interventions based on a completed management plan. The City of Kingston Water Department owns significant acreage in Woodstock, including Cooper Lake and parcels in Mink Hollow and along the Sawkill. While some of these lands are essential to the Kingston water supply system, some parcels may be considered as non-essential by Kingston. Woodstock should collaborate with the city in planning for the future of those properties, as well as for the other Kingston water sources within the town, so the town's interests can be considered and advanced. New York City water supply over 5,000 acres of hydrologically sensitive lands that are part of the New York City water supply system are protected by the NYC DEP and provide collateral conservation benefits for the town. The town should collaborate with the DEP to ensure the protection of these resources and appropriate access to them. Wetlands and watershed protection, wetland maps should be evaluated and updated, and watershed protection aligned to be consistent with NYC DEP guidelines. The comprehensive plan, water resource management needs to be updated to include the threat posed to Woodstock's aquifer by leaving contaminants illegally dumped at 10 Church Road, sitting over Woodstock's aquifer.
Hi, I'm Lisa Kirk. Some of you might know me for a really long time. I came here by way of East Jewett, formerly from New York City, which I got priced out of, as we do. And I live here now. I bought a property in Barrettsville. I support my son. I'm a single mom. Through my STR, which I have a permit for, I had a lovely conversation with Bill the other day that said that he promised all of us that we're not going to lose our STR. So I just want to make that perfectly clear, and I hope that you reify this in your documents. I appreciate all the time you put in, but I want to make sure that we are grandfathered in, because I did not buy this property thinking that I could afford it any other way. I cannot support my child and this property and the taxes that I pay to be able to pull it off. So if I have to go, my property will go to a developer, no doubt about it. I'd like to try to preserve it. I have extra acreage. I'd be more than happy to accommodate other people, but I certainly cannot afford to build anything. So unless we get people like Rupco in, it ain't happening. Regular people like us that live here in this community, that support this community, that pay people in this community to be able to support what we do, won't be able to pull it off. So it's really, really crucial that we involve the community or the businesses or the projects that actually support these kinds of models, not expect developers to give anything to anyone, because they won't. So that's my 5 cents.
Hello.
We'll take a 5-minute break, and then anybody who wants to leave can. Anybody who wants to stay for the shady water is welcome to stay. The one thing I got to tell you, I'm really excited about throughout the evening was all the great support that I've heard from Rupco. So I hope when they do come back, the project, that you will all be out here supporting them and fighting for them. So before you are
address, but there are no questions about applications that have been filed for a really long time. I am a young family there, with my water right now. So please stay. I'm a dean.
All right, folks, that quiet. We're gonna start the next phase. With the show of hands. Let's start with this next. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, about 10, 11 people. 12, 13, 14, okay. So we're gonna go 2 minutes, okay? Before we get started, though, I'm gonna adjourn the public hearing on the, yeah, hey, come on, let's settle down so we can hear each other. Adjourn the public hearing on the zoning chapter 260 and subdivision 254, all chair. Okay. So there's about 15, 20 people that want to speak. We'll start right here in the front corner, 2 minutes. And again, I'm gonna really ask everybody to stick to their 2 minutes.
3 minutes.
Okay.
What?
You got this? Okay. Oh, okay.
Alan Weber. In preparing this, I could have read from studies listing a bunch of toxic chemicals that are troubling to pronounce, but more troubling to drink. Or I could have read another poetic warning from the Lorax. Instead, I decided to ask a simple question. Where is the leadership and concern? I watched the panel discussion. I heard the fear being expressed by your constituents. I heard the supervisor admit to the possibility, the word he was most comfortable using, that our town's water is in fact endangered. I heard him say that it's possible that we were screwed by the DEC. I heard a hydrogeologist say that she was going to bang on doors at the DEC for us. I heard references to the Amy's not being helped by the town, but having to fight the town in court and having their GoFundMe called a scam. The supervisor said that the water should be tested. Should seems to be the operative word. Questioners asking for solutions were told what they should do. So again, the question, where is the leadership and concern? Why did it take so long to even get this on the agenda? Why were people told not to talk about this? Why aren't our town leaders the ones banging on doors at the DEC? Or better, going over the heads of the DEC to the governor? If there's even a possibility that our health and safety are in peril, isn't it the most basic responsibility of our town leaders, elected and unelected, to be proactively leading the fight in defense of their constituents, rather than settling for compromise non-solutions and justifying inactions based on a fig leaf, a superficial and suspect 2-page report that essentially says nothing to see here. We know that what was dumped in our town was both illegal and toxic. We know that the particulates that were not cleaned up by Plan E are still there with the potential to leach into the groundwater. We know that people, your neighbors, have already been advised to not drink their water. So where is the leadership and concern?
My name is James Manuel. I've lived on Reynolds Lane, was raised there. And on that property, directly affected by the dumping of construction and demolition waste and unknown other waste on Church Road, illegally permitted by our town officials. What could one possibly say in 2 minutes to the stewards of the town to bring perspective or awareness that the massive pile of materials laced with chemical pollutants in Shady has to be completely removed? What do we have to say? Are all buying water for home use now for fear of consuming deleterious chemicals from our well water. As long as the pollutants remain atop our properties, that threat remains. And we cannot consume our water, especially out of fear for our children or anyone visiting our homes. Property value to visitors to our homes, real estate agents and town agents, we are compelled to warn you. Do not drink or use our water from the tap. It might be contaminated with chemicals. Even if we tested yesterday for chemical X in our water, today it might be over the federal limit. We are forced to support lawsuits like the Amy's, who begged for remediation. We don't want our property taxes used against the Amy's. When they are taken up to protect our water, if the materials are not removed there, there will be many lawsuits, and your legacy, McKenna, will be the one who favored, permitted, and allowed chemical pollution to remain up to threaten the waters of Woodstock.
Hi, my name is Kelly Letterman. I'm not a good public speaker. As the newest resident on Reynolds Lane, having moved in July 2022, I find myself grappling with a situation that has turned my dream of homeownership into a daily battle against uncertainty. The water that flows through my faucets, the very source of life, is now a source of concern, casting a shadow over my daily routines. Instead of enjoying the simple pleasure of a hot shower or a clean meal, I am haunted by the nagging question, is this water harming me? Despite my short time here, I've delved into the history of this issue, piecing together the chain of events that led to the current predicament. Yet the enormity of the situation still defies comprehension. How is this allowed to happen? Why 4 years after the problem surfaced, it remains unresolved? And most disheartening of all, why does the town board seem indifferent to the plight of its residents? The ongoing water contamination crisis is a stain in our community, a stark reminder of the fragility of our well-being and the responsibility we bear towards one another. It is a story of neglect, of inaction, and of a community's right to clean, safe water being repeatedly trampled upon. As a newcomer, I am dismayed by the town board's apparent apathy towards this critical issue. Their inaction is a betrayal of public trust, a failure to uphold their duty to protect the health and safety of their constituents. The residents of Woodstock deserve better. We must demand accountability, transparency, and a swift resolution to this crisis. We must hold those responsible to task and ensure that our voices are heard. The health of our community and the very foundation of our lives hangs in the balance.
Thank you.
Thank you.
John Ludwig. Bill, I know you said you're doing everything you can, at least I think you've said that. I think I've heard you say that. And I'd like to ask if you would share with us, what did Michelle Hinchy have to say when you spoke to her?
Better to ask Michelle Hinchy. I don't want to speak for her.
Don't speak for her.
I'm not going to speak. This was ages ago.
Did you speak with Michelle Hinchy about the Shady situation?
Ages ago.
Okay. Would you share with us something about your discussion with Kathy Hochul?
No, I didn't have a conversation.
You didn't speak with,
No.
okay, Bill, then
I've
I
spoken
think
with
you're
her.
not doing everything you can, and I urge you to speak to Michelle Hinchy and speak to Kathy Hochul and ask for their help to solve this situation. Thank you.
The DEC Region 3 Director Kelly R. Tortora letter to the supervisor and town board dated June 23rd, 2023 is a fail. It fails to mention that the testing done of the pulverized material at 10 Church Road found elevated levels of acetylphenylene, benzoatrazine, benzopyrene, benzofluoranthene, benzophenylene, chrysene, dibenzoatrazine, fluoranthene, fluorine, endenpyrene, phenanthyrene, pyrene, perfluorobutanic acid, 4,4-DDT, arsenic, barium, chromium, lead, and 85.5% solids. It fails to mention that Carolus testified in Shandaken court that the material he illegally dumped at Church Road was from his Route 212 Saugerty site that the DEC had shut down. Material tested there matched the analysis done at 10 Church Road. The DEC had mandated that for that material to go to a registered facility designated to handle leachate. That is where the material needs to go now. It fails to mention that the clean fill that New York State allows is not what was dumped and buried at 10 Church Road. That was contaminated C&D material, pulverized in chunks and not clean fill. It fails to mention that when the DEC first looked at the illegal dumping on 10 Church Road, they visually noted the presence of C&D material with coal ash and slag. So what miraculously happened for Kelly Tortora to send off this get out of jail free letter to the town supervisor and the board? That letter is a fail, and the town attempts to use it as a cornerstone of their argument that nothing needs further to be done is a big fail. Failing to protect Woodstock's aquifer and the Sawkill and all who need uncontaminated drinking water. It's time to stop with the fails and get all of that contaminated material hauled to a registered facility as the DEC had originally ordered Carolus to do. Carolus is in jail for allegedly beating a man to death. His compliance with the DEC track record is a fail. See Oat Hill Road, Felquy Road, and Church Road fails. A reputable hauling company needs to get it done.
Okay, sorry, my introduction was yelling initially, but my name is Jordan Castile. Where are we meant to feel safe if not at home? By definition, safe means protected from and not exposed to danger or risk. This past week, we hosted family and friends at our home for the holidays where we fielded questions we did not have answers to. Is it okay to wash the lettuce in your sink? I forgot to use the bottled water this morning to make my coffee. Is that okay? Is it okay for me to have a shower? It was a horrible feeling to not say with confidence to our loved ones, it is okay. This is a safe place for you to be. It wasn't until after we purchased our home on Reynolds Lane in the summer of 2020 that we became aware we shared a property line with the dump site at 10 Church Road. Although we were concerned as newcomers, unaware of local politics, we naively trusted you, our town officials, who said complete removal was the solution being pursued. At some point, things changed, and the assurances we'd been given never came to fruition. No one came back to our home to tell us the plans had changed, or asked our opinion, or to see if we felt safe. We are extremely reasonable people. We came into this conversation looking for data and facts, and slowly it became increasingly clear that literally all of the safeguards failed.
In addition to that, instead of acknowledging that failure, we've been met with town leadership that feels more complacent than action-oriented. To rub salt into an already raw wound, the town is using our tax dollars to fight the Amy's in court. And that's only one lawsuit that has the strong potential to turn into many more. The debris is still there, and so are we. We are faced with the dump every day, contending with our desire to have a family and a constant gnawing feeling that our future health and investment is doomed. We moved here to find safety and quiet. Instead, we have found fear and a battle for clean drinking water that none of us should have to fight, especially not when the town has laws that it could use to protect us. We will continue to organize, speak, and fight on behalf of the Amy's, our down gradient neighbors, and all fellow Woodstock residents, all of you in here. We will fight for you, just so I can feel safe at home. Clean water is a human right and not up for discussion. That is all. I just provided, for the record, is also 317 petition signatures of people who are also asking for the removal of all of the contaminants, debris on Pinchurch Road. They're demanding.
Hello, my name is David Schultz. I also live at 49 Reynolds Lane. Hard to follow that. I'm reading a statement from Lawrence Edelman, who's the homeowner at 29 Reynolds Lane. We are happy to call Woodstock our second home and happy to be a part of the special community here. However, had we known that our groundwater was potentially infected with harmful material, we would not have purchased in Shady. Pertinent information was kept from us in 2021. We've heard nothing from our elected officials in the way of a solution or even an excuse as to why the laws against the dumping contaminated material aren't being exercised. Shady needs clean water and its residents ask for better communication and cooperation from town leadership. Both long-time residents and people sitting here now are exposed to the same health risks and financial burden. The future of Shady depends on action now. The community won't be a special one if word gets out that the town permits illegal dumping and you can't drink the water. Thank you.
Yeah, Joe Zarnecki, 33 Reynolds Lane. It's not the first time we've had this conversation. I am a little concerned about why we're still here 4 years later. You know, the first meeting, I've been involved in this right from the beginning, and you, Bill, and you, Laura, said, this has got to go away. It's got to go away. We've got to get rid of this, and it can't take over a year. Here we are 4 years later, and we're still fighting the same thing. And you seem to be supporting the persons who don't more than you're supporting us. Wrong. And we're fighting behind a DEC letter. Well, the DEC knows that the stuff that was dumped is contaminated. It was stated in the court. So, I mean, are they trying to cover themselves? Because they should have taken care of all that material before it arrived at Shady. That was their job. They were supposed to oversee getting rid of it. So I don't understand it. I just don't understand, why are you guys not supporting us? Why aren't you fighting for us? You know, we're in your neighborhood. We can't drink our water. I'm buying bottles of water every couple of days. This is absurd. This is absurd. You've got to do something about this.
Yeah. Yeah. Any more speakers? Oh.
My piece is 3 minutes, a little over 3, and I'm going to insist on finishing as we have been waiting 6 months. We have been waiting 6 months, and my piece is 3 minutes. And I will
Talk fast.
Yeah, so I will talk fast. I'm Julie Zaba, artist, and I live at 81 Reynolds Lane, and I'm here to speak about the Shady. In 2020, at the height of the pandemic lockdown,
We heard dump trucks and excavators arriving at 10 Church Road with truckload after truckload of contaminated spill. Fearful, we called the police, we called the DEC, we called the town supervisor, we even climbed up to the ridge to argue with the property owner and Caroli's the contractor. To no avail. The trucks kept coming and the fill stayed there. Later that fall, after initial hydrological consultations, we were reassured by an emergency town board meeting in which a resolution had passed that were promised the enforcement of the town law, the complete removal of the fill, as well as intermittent testing of the neighboring wells. And then we waited. We waited for the town to take the offending parties to court. We waited for the $1,500 to be fined per truckload to finance the cleanup. That never happened. We waited for the town to test our wells. We waited for the town to carry out its promise to remove the fill and clean up the site. Instead, 3 years later, in the spring of 2023, we were woken up once again to the sound of excavators that no one had forewarned us about. We watched and we waited as Plan E removed a few bigger pieces of debris and removed the remaining contaminated fill to a berm on the other side of the property, expanding the number of downgrading homes that are at risk for contamination. 6 months ago, I asked the town board, went to the town board meeting to ask for public discussion of this issue. 2 minutes is not a public discussion. I'm tired. I'm tired of waiting. I'm tired of hearing knowledgeable professional hydrologists insist that a complete removal of the fill is necessary, while the town supervisor insists that the cleanup is complete. I'm tired of being afraid to drink our water and of the potential contamination of the Woodstock aquifer. I'm tired of the countless number of hours of personal time working to ensure that this cleanup will happen as it should. I'm tired, after receiving Paul Rubin's letter, of needing for me to take on the responsibility of warning downgraded neighbors that their water may not be safe for them to drink. This is the town's job. I'm not finished. I'm sick and tired of the supervisor's false statement that a cleanup cannot be accomplished without additional court order when the judgment against the guilty parties already exists, and we can do so. I'm exhausted by the fact that many people in this town choose not to believe the documented facts highlighted by 3 different hydrogeologists with over 100 years of experience between them. I'm sick and tired that the supervisor has chosen to collaborate with the polluter and spend town money on opposing the justifiable Amy lawsuit.
Okay.
And I'm tired, I'm almost finished, and sick with exhaustion about an endless chain of bad decisions that led us to this point.
Thank you.
But most importantly, and this is the last thing, I'm tired and deeply saddened that Shady, this beautiful, serene, healing place that I've had the privilege to call home for the past 20 years, has been violated and desecrated in this manner. Remove the film!
Yeah. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, 6.
Tony, we talked again.
2 minutes.
Elaborating on what we were saying before we were talking about the zoning. What we're trying to do is we're trying to make a nice, safe, comfortable town that is a true community working together. And that we are all of us one match away from having, as the woman was saying over there earlier, a forest fire because we're not doing cleaning up in the forest. We have to work together. We're all vulnerable. It used to be that Betty McDonald, however many of you remember her, virtually every week there was several benefits for people who got in trouble. When there is a problem, we need to work together and call ourselves a community a family, whatever we want to talk about, but our laws and our way that we enforce them should not make basically sacrifice zones where certain areas get left out and certain people get left out and certain people's children can't live here and certain people can't eat the food or whatever.
Or
it
drink
is.
their water.
Together.
Thank you, Charlie.
I'm Hera, as most people know from all that chatting, and I'm a public sculptor. I've lived here for 25 years. I have 4 grandchildren here, and my son Jordan lives here. It is just appalling that this is the second of 2 big toxic situations to happen. I'm appalled that the library is completely toxic at 10 Church Road, and it should be just completely dug up. All that soil needs to be remediated. People may not know that. We don't have a newspaper that's telling us that, but there's a toxic level of lead and arsenic in the soil of 10 Dixon. These things that Julie tried to list, I mean, it was tongue-tying. How many chemicals are in this duct that is not being cleaned up? Any one of you is not doing that. And maybe one of these days we can get something that's like a majority of people that are honest. You're not, and you're not. And I'm really upset about it.
My name is Jessie. I live at 73 Reynolds Place with my 8-year-old daughter. We live just down the hill from Penn Church. I want you to look at me. I am the person you threatened to call the police on at a town meeting last spring. I am in the group who on Kingston radio, you compare it to the January 6th rioters. I stand here today to share how I've been impacted by Plan E. Even though you, Bill, continue to say that the fill has been removed, the hydrologists have explained in detail over and over again how the pulverized contaminated construction debris is actually still sitting up on 10 Church and how planning moved the C and D around the site, and that it now covers an area equal to 5 Olympic-sized swimming pools. When the contaminated construction debris was initially dumped in 2020, my house was not classified as down gradient. Now, since the debris is spread out, my house is down gradient. What this means is that my water was safe from the risk of contamination before Plan E was implemented, but now my water is at risk. I have so many questions. Why were we not considered when you created this Plan E? Who does Plan E serve? Why did you as a town approve a plan that has actually made matters worse for me and others? Why did you not hire experts that know about the issue and its effects, who understand how groundwater moves? I stand here to tell you that I don't see a future for myself here anymore. I live on your street. You drive by me every day. I have no future without water, without safe soil. I am drinking water from Arkansas. I am afraid to take a bath. I am afraid that these contaminants will be absorbed through my skin and through the delicate skin of my 8-year-old child who has to sit here tonight, who has spent half her life has been us fighting for our water. I am scared, I am angry, and I am tired.
Thank you.
Huntsberger, I live at 81 Reynolds Lane. This is Paul Rubin's 20-page analysis of the situation. I'd like to enter it into your records. I know you already have a copy.
Yes.
I want to say one sentence before I play this short song, and that is that the other day it rained, and I normally think of rain as sort of a gift, you know, But then it occurred to me that the rainwater doesn't just sit there, it actually flows through the ground, picking up these toxins and threatens the water. So now the rain is not something nice, it's a threat. Anyway. The earth is our mother. It's everything. Land to live on, water to drink, and earth to breathe. They got the toxins on the ground. Hundreds of truckloads, thousands of truckloads, millions to take away, take it all. Big jobs of land. It's toxic, it's take it away, take it all. It's going the way it was before. On that he must agree. On that time, with touching free. Take away, take it off. Let's do a comedy show.
Everything you've heard from all the people here. What's your name? Marcel Nagel. You've had more reports than you can shake a stick at. I don't know how you deny it. And now today, the man who's been saying, I can't spend money on private property, I find out the town paid for $6,000 worth of engineering on private property.
Wow.
I got the copies of checks. I'm waiting for the FOIL request to be answered with the proof of repayment and the invoices that have been sent. I've been fighting you with lack of enforcement since the Selena Hotel debacle. An associate and I spent $27,000.
You know, you're being a little rude. You don't need to point. I know.
Please, what has happened to escape. But I've had enough of you. Okay. And you should resign.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
My name is Edie Howard, and I've been here for 42 years. That's half of my life. And I don't know how many of you were here, but I was in this room. It wasn't romancing, but it was when Vince ran the meat market, and his son runs the hardware store now. Their family was having to drink polluted water from Rotron, Emitek, and it was exactly the same discussion. Other people who live over there by Rotron, their water is polluted, and I don't know, has anybody checked on that now? That for years, they were drinking bottled water, they had to buy, and I think the town actually bought water from them. There was a big truck eventually that came and gave them water, and it was supposed, Rotron was supposed to dig it up. That the kind of toxic they had there, I don't even think you can dig up. It was from these machine parts that they, when they wash and this toxic stuff. And it was getting into all the entire water base that they have there. Was anybody else here in the meeting that was here? There's somebody. Yeah. Yeah. So this is not a new problem. This is something we all need to take care of.
Do you want any comments from town board members?
Yes.
You don't?
You don't?
You don't want comments from town board members?
Why does the
I'm
permit
gonna
say
call
the
for
town
adjournment.
voted for it? We never voted for
I
planning.
call for adjournment. All in favor?
No,
Aye.
No.
Okay, all in favor?
no, there are 2 votes, no, we have not adjourned.
You only need.
No, you don't.
So thank you all.
Right now. Again. This is a letter from Kelly Tortoro. It is dated today, November 28th. This letter says municipalities may have local laws regarding solid waste that are more stringent than state law. That is what Woodstock has. Woodstock must enforce its own law.
Don't run away from it.
Authority to require any remedial action at this site. Municipalities may have local laws that are stronger. This is the way to clean up the shady dump. Yeah! Right here in the code is the local law, 192.4. No material of any nature which is considered or could be hazardous, infectious, toxic, radioactive, harmful, or